ready? Hi, everyone. Welcome to the very, very, very first Florence Scovel Shinn book class, study class. And today we are studying, I've got my very old book that I've had since the 90s and it's a bit worn, but we're doing the first book on this list and it's The Game of Life and How to Play It. And we are going to go through this and then look at whatever it is you're going through, how to apply what she's talking about to what you are going through. Feel free in this session to put your video on or just do your audio, whatever you prefer. And I am going to start the reading. If at any point people would like a chance to read and they have got the book, please put your little hand up and then I can call on you if you're not too shy to read in front of a group. No obligation, just if you feel to. So this book, The Game of Life, is from 1925. And this is how it goes. Hi, ZY, welcome. And hi, everyone that's come in. I'm going to start doing the reading. And if at any point while we're discussing what Florence is talking about, please feel free to put your hand up and just ask as we go, okay? It is about not waiting to have your questions answered because it's so easy to forget once we get a bit further down the track. So ask as we're going, little hand, and then I'll call on you. So the game. Most people consider life a battle, but it is not a battle, it is a game. It is a game, however, which cannot be played successfully without the knowledge of spiritual law. And the Old and the New Testament give the rules of the game with wonderful clearness. Jesus Christ taught that it was a great game of giving and receiving. Whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. This means that whatever man sends out in word or deed will return to him. What he gives, he will receive. If he gives hate, he will receive hate. If he gives love, he will receive love. If he gives criticism, he will receive criticism. But if he lies, he will be lied to. If he cheats, he will be cheated. We are taught also that the imagine, my goodness, I can't even read. Imaging faculty plays a leading part in the game of life. Keep thy heart or imagination with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. This means that what man imagines or images, sooner or later, externalizes in his affairs. I know of a man who feared a certain disease. It was very rare and difficult to get, but he pictured it continually and read about it until it manifested in his body, and he died, the victim of distorted imagination. So we see, to play successfully the game of life, we must train the imagining faculty. A person with an imaging, trained to image only good, brings into his life every righteous desire of his heart: health, wealth, love, friends, perfect self-expression, his highest ideals. The imagination has been called the scissors of the mind. I love that. It is ever cutting, day by day, the pictures man sees there. and sooner or later he meets his own creations in his outer world. To train the imagination successfully, man must understand the workings of his mind. The Greeks said, know thyself. There are three departments of the mind: the subconscious, the conscious, and the superconscious. The subconscious is simply power without direction. It is like steam or electricity, and it does what it is directed to do. It has no power of induction. Whatever man feels deeply or images clearly is impressed upon the subconscious mind and carried out in the minutest detail. So this is where she, I think, explains this really well. Subconscious, conscious, and superconscious. So we start with the subconscious. It's just power, okay? But it's not going anywhere. It needs direction, okay? And we're going to go into her explaining the other two. For example, a woman I know, when a child, always made believe she was a widow. She dressed up in black clothes and wore a long black veil, and people thought she was very clever and amusing. She grew up and married a man with whom she was deeply in love. In a short time, he died, and she wore black and a sweeping veil for many years. The picture of herself as a widow was impressed upon the subconscious mind, and in due time worked itself out regardless of the havoc created. Number two is the conscious mind. The conscious mind has been called mortal or carnal mind. It is the human mind, and it sees life as it appears to be. So it's what we're conscious of as we walk around during our day. We're conscious of things. It's what we see and what it appears to be. So it sees death, it sees disaster, it sees sickness, it sees poverty and limitation of every kind, and it impresses the subconscious. Okay? Number three is the superconscious mind. This is the God mind within each man, and it is the realm of perfect ideas. In it is the perfect pattern spoken of by Plato, the divine design. For there is a divine design for each person. There is a place that you are to fill and no one else can fill. Something you are to do which no one else can do. There is a perfect picture of this in the superconscious mind. It's usually flashes across the conscious as an unattainable ideal, something too good to be true. In reality, it is man's true destiny or destination, flashed to him from the infinite intelligence which is within himself. So this is where you get really good guidance. This is where you get amazing ideas. This is where you develop a connection between you and source, is through the superconscious. Many people, however, are in ignorance of their true destinies and are striving for things and situations which do not belong to them and would only bring failure and dissatisfaction if attained. For example, a woman came to me and asked me to speak the word that she would marry a certain man with whom she was very much in love. She called him AB. I replied that this would be a violation of spiritual law, but that I would speak the word for the right man, the divine selection, the man who belonged to her by divine right. I added, if AB is the right man, you can't lose him. And if he isn't, you will receive his equivalent. She saw AB frequently, but no headway was made in their friendship. One evening, she called and said, "Do you know, for the last week, AB hasn't seemed so wonderful to me." I replied, "Maybe he's not the divine selection. Another man may be the right one." Soon after that, she met another man who fell in love with her at once and who said she was his ideal. In fact, he said all the things that she had always wished AB would say to her. She remarked it was quite uncanny. She soon returned his love and lost interest in AB. This shows the law of substitution. A right idea was substituted for a wrong one. Therefore, there was no loss or sacrifice involved. Akbar, I'll take your question now.
Hi, Agnes. Hi, everyone. My question is this. You just mentioned divine selection, isn't it? How does that work with a specific person then?
Well, the thing with Florence and Neville is they're pretty much opposing in their beliefs here.
Yeah.
Neville, as you know, Neville manifested his specific person and became his wife. Florence isn't big on this. She's more be open-handed, ask for the right thing for you, and you will see where the chips fall. So she's not a big supporter of SP. However, there is a story in this book which is about the cap.
Right.
And we will get to that story. I will put the link to that story. I read it out years ago on YouTube. I'll put the link to that story down below in this video. So if you want to go and hear it, because that's where I think she probably gets the closest to saying an SP is okay, because the woman was saying he took off with another woman, and the woman goes to Florence, the one that's heartbroken, and says, you know, he's taken off with somebody else. And Florence said, you have to bless him. And she said, I'm not blessing him unless I know where he is. And Florence said, you must learn to bless him wherever he is, because you cannot receive a perfect love if you have not given a perfect love.
Right.
So in that story, Akbar, the woman did what Florence said, and her specific person came back.
Right.
So it's an interesting thing, Neville versus Florence, because Florence is almost, you know, she sees it as she calls it a violation of spiritual law. This is how Florence thinks, which is, you kind of go, boy, if you've got a specific person you want.
That's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah, Florence can upset a lot of people if you've got an SP, you yourself, because she goes against a lot of what Neville says, and she's a lot more open-handed rather than specific. Go for that, you know?
Right.
So it's just different ways around the wheel.
Do you need to navigate? If thing is, if you went and sort of decided with Florence's Scovel Shinn's the right way, and Neville Goddard, you can understand a little bit of it. It will make you really confused about which approach to take.
Well, in the beginning, yes. As you study them both, you get to see. I always think if you're doing one thing and it's not working, try the other one. So it gives you the two sides of a coin.
Right.
Because I don't think Neville's right and Florence is wrong, and I don't think Florence is right and Neville's wrong. I've been studying them both since the 90s. So they complement each other, because it's a bit like Abraham Hicks saying, if you're going specific and it doesn't work, go general. She says that all the time.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you can drive yourself nuts trying to get so specific about something, and you just, you know, it's.
She talks about emotional scale and alignment a lot, and
that's right.
And the emotional scale thing, it's very hard to kind of remember it, you know, a lot of the time.
Well, you know what I did years ago, Akbar? I went to Google and I put Abraham Hicks emotional scale images, and I clicked on that, and then it gives you a picture of it. And I used to just keep it on my phone.
Right.
And that way you can see where you're at when you think about a certain topic. Right. So you might feel 3/4 up the list of the emotional scale with, like, say, contentment, happiness, but that might be on money. But when you go to a specific person or a relationship, ooh, you might be down in the bottom quarter.
Right.
Because different topics have a different emotional response, you see.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So how does it correlate with vibration? Is the emotional scale
Yes.
very similar to how you're broadcasting your stuff out?
Correct. It's all vibration and energy. So when you are, say, really depressed, your energy is very low. Now, I'm not saying that in a negative way. You yourself feel it. If you've been depressed in your life, you know how heavy and
Dense it is.
it is. It's
Yeah,
dense and it feels like you're wearing concrete boots
yeah.
because your mind, that's where you're at that time.
Mm,
When you're up in happiness, joy, fun, you feel light as a feather and you feel like you can run on the rooftops. So
true.
energy is it's almost like it's got a weight
Yes.
in a way.
Yeah, yeah. I agree.
Yeah. Cool. And
Okay, thanks a lot.
it is Akbar, as you're listening to Florence, your head will go, yeah, but Neville doesn't agree with that. You know, it will, your head will argue with you if you've done a lot of Neville, your head will argue with Florence a bit. So it's take what you like, leave the rest, try it out. If Neville's not working and you are wanting to look at something from a slightly different angle, I think they both go around the circle in different ways, but they end up at the same point, which is that you're happy, fulfilled, and you've got the things you desire.
So is it like a Venn diagram? Do you know what a Venn diagram is? That's two circles that intersected, and there's the one in the middle.
Yeah.
In maths.
Yeah. Yes.
And I always focus on the one in the middle.
Well, there you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know, some people don't like Florence, some people don't like Neville, you know. I love them both. I think they're both equally wonderful in different ways. Florence really shines in her affirming and she's got simpler language. So she shines in those ways. Whereas Neville says, if you've got something specific you want, go for it. So both are appealing.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
No worries. Wendy.
Hi.
Hello.
Good. Finally, I got it back. I got it.
Thank you.
Thank you. When she says divine selection, and I understand you have been talking about this in your videos about Neville and Florence, and he is now picturing the Venn diagram. That's really good. But are they talking, because I have not seen Neville or Florence talking about the repetitive PTSD thought patterns that scares us, right? That's what basically the anxiety is. Basically, you know, one day you wake up in the morning, continuously the stream of thoughts flows in your head, you are bombarding with it, you are telling opposite to that all the time, and you feel like, oh my God, that bombarding negative thought, where it will manifest, that fear kicks in, right? But you can't be stable on that day, and then later the day, you know, you don't make sin, you go back and sleep peacefully. How will you sleep peacefully when you had that type of a day? With your experience, can you elaborate about that?
What's your question about it, Wendy?
When you have this stream of thoughts that's actually coming, negative thoughts that's coming in your mind constantly, continuously, even if you are saying opposite of your affirmation, the mind doesn't take away that path from that negative thought to a different, it doesn't believe at the time the positive thought that you are saying, but you are completely fighting with that mind. How do you stop that continuous ruminating thoughts on a, not every day, but some days it's just one event comes in the imagination and it bombards it, right?
Yeah. I do think it gets better with practice and time, but I also think sometimes when it's really strong, I would practice surrender and letting go rather than trying to bend it into an affirmation. You know, I would, if you can, do the 15-minute surrender and letting go meditation. I'm just going to write stuff down if I mention it to you, so I remember to put it in the description for all of you.
Thank you.
And also the Ho'oponopono, I think, are the best ways. You've got to give your mind something easy to do. Sometimes affirmations are too hard. If you're really down low with anxiety, depression, fear, it's too hard to try and affirm something. So I think it's easier to do the Ho'oponopono, because you're saying, I'm sorry, I'm hurting myself with these thoughts. Please forgive me for doing that to myself. I love you. Oh, thank you. Thank you for reminding me what I got to do. So you're not saying those in between bits. You're just saying the 4 statements, but you must give your mind something else to do. And if you can't, that's when I think you practice. You just lay on the bed and you practice, I surrender, I let go, I surrender, I let go, because your mind is winning at that moment. You have to, rather than try and push the mind to continue to do what you want it to do, and it's rebelling against you, I think surrender and let go, do the breathing and say, I surrender, I let go, as you're doing your breathing. I think that's one of the best ways to unlock that.
Because, sometimes it happens when I'm at work. And I can't do any of the meditations, any of the things, but all I could do is opposite affirmation that I can simply tell, but my body doesn't like it. I don't like that icky feeling in myself that, that gives like a, threatening thing inside my mind. Somebody, is threatening me. So I was threatening myself. At that time, I would be attending the meeting, but I couldn't attend the meeting. I couldn't speak up myself, but I forced myself to do things. I can't take away myself from that situation.
I know.
And, I try myself to put some music, and then it doesn't work, any of that, and it was actually a hard journey when I think of it, it was a hard. Do you think it's a good idea? Because sometimes, as I mentioned in last call itself, close friends impact ourselves a lot with their life, because we started picturing their life into our imagining what will happen next, like a movie story. It's like I don't want to do that, and it's like a very close relationship, but I'm trying to set the boundary on that. But my mind was saying like this is nothing relevant to me, but it is actually torturing me, something like that. Some days very hard, but
it is. I'm not going to say to you it isn't. I mean, I think even after 30 years of doing it, it's like you're only as good as today. So you could have done it well last week, last month, 10 years ago, but today it's a new situation. Something's bothering you, somebody's bothering you, you're feeling fear, you're feeling anguish, you're feeling anxiety. And it has to be that you practice it all over again. It's a fresh new thing. And disciplining the mind, I think, is the greatest spiritual work, apart from getting into a state of love. And you can't get into a state of love until you discipline your mind.
Right. It doesn't feel good when the mind is like this wacky. We can't create this feeling of, hey, I love you, but I can't feel that I love you, right? That feeling goes away. And at the time, you don't want any of your desire or anything. And that's what I had come to an understanding. Oh, when you're not feeling good, your desires also won't feel good.
Yeah, I know. And Wendy, it's a humbling experience for us all. And I think it's, you just do your best, you get better at it over time. I mean, I know I'm better at it 30 years later than I was when I was in my 20s, so I'm much better at it now than I was then, but I've been practicing for 30 years. Am I perfect at it? No. Do I still have humbling moments? Yes. Do I still have where my mind does what it wants to do? Say I'm angry at somebody. Yes. It's like my mind still wants to be angry. It doesn't want to let it go. it is sure that person's a pain in the ass, and and you're blaming and you're doing all that. So, but you do it faster. It doesn't last as long. So that's what happens as you practice it, progress, not perfection. Don't worry about, trying to achieve enlightenment by the end of the week.
Right. That's what I put pressure on that. Right. That's true. Because this creates a lot of pressure on self, because when we, these type of things happens 2-3 days, and then finally I settle down and arguing with that person in the mind. It can't stop it, because I'm right. I'm arguing. Right.
Yes.
So with that case, it takes 2 to 3 days to get into that, stage.
I
And
know.
I was thinking any quick fix for that, any
No.
regular medicine for that or something.
The medicine is the Ho'oponopono. The medicine is the surrender and letting go. And then once you've surrendered and let go, then you can do affirmations. But if you are not surrendered and letting go and you're still arguing with someone, doing affirmations makes you even more angry.
Right.
So don't try and do affirmations when you're in that state. It doesn't work. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I really appreciate that. And
no
thank
problem.
you so much.
Hopefully that'll make it easier.
Actually, it's some people, when they ignore us, that creates a lot of anguish talk in the brain.
It does.
Right? Why did the heck you are doing this to me? What did I make mistake? I'm a good human being. Why are you doing this to me?
Yeah. And the conversation. The conversation was 3 days ago, and you've been playing it and looking at it and getting angry with them in your mind. I know. It's just that. It's being human, I think.
Is it? Okay, because I'm taking a book after book after book. It talks about the law, but none of the book doesn't talk about when you have this repetitive thought patterns, how do you overcome? This is where
Wendy, if you go to, I'll put the link down below. If you go to YouTube, put in Michael Singer.
Okay.
And put in the word surrender after his name.
Okay.
He does a lot of podcasts on YouTube, and I think he is the best I've ever come across in 30 years about the topic of surrender. He talks a lot about the mind and all this stuff that you've mentioned. So have a listen to him on YouTube. You can listen to him for free, and just pick the videos where you can see he's talked about surrender, because he talks about, needing love and all this other stuff. But put the keyword surrender after his name, and then watch those.
Thank you. I will do that. You have been mentioning Michael Singer. I did watch one of his self-love talk that a couple of weeks back you posted it in your YouTube. So I watched that, and I will watch that. Thank you. And it might be helpful for somebody if there is any short remedy for this type of repetitive thought patterns that happens. That is wiring in the brain through the physical experience. I realized it is the physical experience that's what creating the mental pattern. Once the physical body is calm and quiet, then the mental pattern actually, not goes to the wacky state. So to control the physical body is not a one-day thing. It's a non-stop everyday thing. Eat properly, sleep properly, drink properly, those type of things activates the physical body to function properly. In one of the Greg Brandon's video or talk, he was mentioning that there is a 3-part chakra in the bottom portion of our body and top 3 portion on that, and it is connected through the heart. And if the bottom portion is wacky, then you are not connected and aligned with the heart chakra. That's when the love comes, right? You can't be in a loving state. But the bottom portion is what creates the parasympathetic nervous system a signal that it is not good. And, it fires immediately like a cracker, and it doesn't stop that firing.
Yeah.
And
it's just different people saying things in different ways, and sometimes somebody says it in the way that you understand it and hear it and it makes sense. So as you're reading different books, watching different YouTubes, and learning about different practices, it's all wonderful because it's an interesting topic. all of it.
Oh, very interesting. It's a human evaluation, right? How human anatomy works.
That's
This
it.
is not manifesting something. It's basically who you are as a human being and what is your spirit and why you are deviated from the ego, mind, and the spirit, and that's what creating all this. Why you have actually gotten into all kind of misalignment.
That's it.
With the spiritual nature. It's a long and vast topic. When you go into it, it is a deeper understanding. It's not like do it within a day, within a month. No. It's not like that. It's a lifestyle of living, right? It's not one day thing. And I realized it requires a lot of courage and enthusiasm to continue and persuade and keep it up with the same mentality of the people that you are mingling with. Because people who are not believing all this stuff, they will actually drop you down and put you from top of roller coaster to bottom within a second. Reading YouTube comments also.
And Wendy, that's why we do the inner work, to stay calm and to not give our power away to other people.
Right. That's what. Thank you.
Okay, my pleasure. Okay, continuing with Florence. So her story about AB, and we got to, this shows the law of substitution. So she was interested in the second guy in the end. A right idea was substituted for a wrong one. Therefore, there was no loss or sacrifice involved. Jesus Christ said, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all those things shall be added unto you." And he said the kingdom was within man. The kingdom is the realm of right ideas or the divine pattern. Jesus Christ taught that man's words played a leading part in the game of life. By your words you are justified, and by your words you are condemned. Many people have brought disaster into their lives through idle words. For example, a woman once asked me why her life was now one of poverty, of limitation. Formerly, she had a home, she was surrounded by beautiful things, and she had plenty of money. We found that she had often tired of the management of her home, and she had said repeatedly, "I'm sick and tired of things. I wish I lived in a trunk." My goodness. And she added, "Today, I am living in that trunk." She had spoken herself into a trunk. The subconscious mind had no sense of humor, and people often joke themselves into unhappy situations and experiences. So remember what you say, whether you say it to a friend, whether you say it to your family, whether you say it out loud. This is too good to be true. That's one I hear a lot. Or I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop. Those are common statements people make. So you have to watch what you say about yourself and about your situation. She obviously had everything and then de-manifested it by her lack of gratitude, because she wasn't grateful for it. She found the house to be a burden. So, for example, a woman who had a great deal of money joked continually about getting ready for the poorhouse. In a few years, she was almost destitute, having impressed the subconscious mind with a picture of lack and limitation. Fortunately, the law works both ways, and a situation of lack may be changed to one of plenty. For example, a woman came to me one hot summer's day for a treatment of prosperity. Now, Florence talks about treatments, okay? A treatment is, people would go to Florence, they would tell the disaster story, train wreck, what had happened, and then she would basically put a whole bunch of really good words together in a paragraph to basically live in the end, in Neville's words. Florence called them treatments. It was give someone something that they can read over and over again so that they can start to change their mindset. Okay? So you'll hear her talk about treatments in these books. So this woman was worn out, dejected, and discouraged. She said she possessed just $8 in the world. I said, good, we'll bless the $8 and multiply them as Jesus Christ multiplied the loaves and the fishes. For he taught that every man had the power to bless and to multiply, to heal and to prosper. She said, what should I do next? I replied, follow your intuition. Have you a hunch to do anything or go anywhere? Now, this is another big Florence trait, you know, like Neville is living in the end and everyone's you pushed out and feeling is the secret and imagination creates reality. Florence is big on follow your leads and hunches. So you've got a small amount of money. Let's bless the $8. And then you sit and wait. And do you get any ideas that come to you to go and do something? So Florence talks about this a lot throughout her books. Follow your leads and hunches. Okay. Intuition means intuition or to be taught from within. It is man's unerring guide, and I will deal more fully with its laws in a following chapter. The woman replied, I don't know. I seem to have a hunch to go home. I just have enough money for car fare. Her home was in a distant city and was one of lack and limitation. And the reasoning mind or the intellect would have said, stay in New York and get work and make some money. I replied, then go home. Never violate a hunch. So when you get that feeling, and even if it doesn't make sense, follow it because it's the gateway, the doorway to things changing. So I spoke the following words for her. Infinite Spirit, open the way for great abundance for, and then her name, whatever it was. There's a blank there. She is an irresistible magnet for all that belongs to her by divine right. Okay, so this is a big Florence thing too. Infinite Spirit, open the way for. Florence did a lot of that. And then you put in after what it is that you desire. So it is what Neville calls at your command. Commands and demands. Florence, this is how she does it very similarly, but she uses the words infinite spirit. Now, I told her to repeat it continually also, and she left for home immediately. In calling on a woman, that's very odd wording. One day, she linked up with an old friend of her family. Through this friend, she received thousands of dollars in a miraculous way. She had said to me often, tell people about the woman who came to you with $8 and a hunch. There is always plenty on man's pathway, but it can only be brought into manifestation through desire, faith, or the spoken word. Jesus Christ brought out clearly that man must make the first move. So ask and it shall be given. You seek and you shall find. Now, ask and it is given. That's what Abraham Hicks talks about. So you can see that a lot of these ways of doing things, one, come from the Bible, and two, they're similar, slightly different layers of how things are said. But again, you're pointing in the same direction, which is stop talking about what you don't want, talk about what you do want, and keep repeating it until the energy breaks. So, in the scriptures we read, concerning the works of my hands, command ye me. Infinite intelligence, God is ever ready to carry out man's smallest or greatest demands. Every desire, unuttered or unexpressed, is a demand. We are often startled by having a wish suddenly fulfilled. For example, one Easter, having seen many beautiful rose trees in the florist windows, I wished I would receive one. And for an instant, I saw it mentally being carried to the door. So she's imagining it. Okay, this is Florence herself. This is her story. Easter came, and with it, a beautiful rose tree. I thanked my friend the following day, and I told her it was just what I had wanted. She replied, I didn't send you a rose tree. I sent you lilies. The man had mixed up the order and sent me a rose tree simply because I had started the law in action, and I had to have a rose tree. Nothing stands between man and his highest ideals, and every desire of his heart, but doubt and fear. So nothing stands between us and our highest ideals except for when we have doubt and when we have fear. When man can wish without worrying, every desire will be instantly fulfilled. I will explain more fully in a following chapter the scientific reason for this and how fear must be erased from the consciousness. It is man's only enemy: fear of lack, fear of failure, fear of sickness, fear of loss, fear of insecurity on some plane. Jesus Christ said, why are ye fearful, O ye of little faith? So we can see we must substitute faith for fear is only inverted faith. It is faith in evil instead of good. I like how clear that is. We can see, I'm going to read it again, we must substitute faith for fear. So you believe even when you don't see anything. That's what faith is. It's believing in the unseen. For fear is only an inverted faith. It is faith in evil instead of good. Believing you won't get what you want. Believing that it's too good to be true. Believing that the other shoe's going to drop. Believing someone else is going to get what you want. All these things are just thoughts, and you can change a thought. It is not set in concrete. Okay, you just have to make an effort, and it does take effort, and it's very tiring in the beginning to change thoughts, but as you practice, it gets easier, and then you don't get that exhaustion. I remember when I first started trying to change thoughts of fear, I felt wiped out. I was just wiped out, like I had to lay down. But as you practice, and as I practiced, it got easier and easier. So just do it in increments so you're not overloading yourself and trying to change fears about everything. You know, change the fears about things that are the most important, and then you can mushroom out. It's a skill, like riding a bike. You get better at it with practice. Okay, now, the object of the game of life is to see clearly one's good and to obliterate all mental pictures of evil. This must be done by impressing the subconscious mind with a realization of good. A very brilliant man who had attained great success told me he had suddenly erased all fear from his consciousness by reading a sign which hung in a room. He saw printed in large letters this statement: why worry? It will probably never happen. These words were stamped indelibly upon his subconscious mind, and he has now a firm conviction that only good can come into his life, therefore only good can manifest. In the following chapter, I will deal with the different methods of impressing the subconscious mind. If a man's faithful servant, no, it is man's faithful servant, but one must be careful to give it the right orders. Man has ever a silent listener at his side, his subconscious mind. Every thought, every word is impressed upon it and carried out in amazing detail. It is like a singer making a record on the sensitive disc of the phonographic plate. Remember, this was written in 1925. Every note and tone of the singer's voice is registered. If he coughs, if he hesitates, it is registered also. So let us break all the old bad records in the subconscious mind, the records of our lives which we do not wish to keep, and make new and beautiful ones. Speak these words aloud with power and conviction. I now smash and demolish by my spoken word every untrue record in my subconscious mind. They shall return to the dust heap of their native nothingness, for they came from my own vain imaginings. I now make my perfect records through the Christ within, the records of health, wealth, love, and perfect self-expression. Now, Florence refers to perfect self-expression. We would, in today's words, call it work. Okay? This is the square of life, the game completed. So perfect health, perfect wealth, perfect love, perfect self-expression / work. That's the square that she talks about. In the following chapters, I will show how man can change his conditions by changing his words. Any man who does not know the power of the word is behind the times. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. So that's the first chapter. Does anyone want to ask anything before I continue on the next chapter? We can start and read a bit of this one. Has anyone got the book and they'd like to read a bit?
I have got the same book that you have, so that pages can match as well. I can read.
Okay, Wendy, I'll just take this question and then I'll get you to continue. Thank you. iPhone.
Hi, Agnes, it's Elaine. Thank you so much for this. How
hi,
are
Elaine.
you?
Good, thank you. I was wondering who it was.
I'm on from my iPhone, so it's first time
problem.
using Zoom for me. But I guess I do have a question, and please stop me if I shouldn't ask. And if I'm going ahead, there was I did read The Game of Life and How to Play It. There was another example, and I think that's what confused me, where Florence Scovel Shinn mentions somebody who was in love with her husband. He left, but then she set the dinner table and persisted for a year and felt him having dinner with him, and he eventually came back. Doesn't that contradict a little bit of what she's saying, or am I just misinterpreting what she means?
Yeah, that woman did contradict. That woman really did what Neville suggests, not what Florence suggests. And yet Florence still wrote it in her book. So yes, well, she's the classic I want my SP. That's that's where she was at. And she really persisted in her faith of manifesting that specific person. And then obviously sent Florence the story, and Florence published it. But yes, you will see as you study this stuff, well, you go, well, hang on. She said in the first story, you pray for the divine selection of a partner.
Okay.
And then in this story, the woman's gone and done the specific person route, which is really what Neville suggests. So, did she tell that woman, set the table, but pray for the divine selection? Did the woman not share the story fully that we don't know that? Or did she go, no, I'm not doing that bit that Florence said, I'm going to do it my way. And I'm just going to set the table and I want it to be him. So it's interesting that you pick that up, because that's what happens. The more you read this stuff, you will see certain things that don't completely gel, especially the story about the cap. And I can't remember exactly the story you told. I remember the bits of that story, but I can't remember exactly which story it is. So we'll come across it as we keep reading. But yes, which fork in the road do you take? Do you want to set the table with your specific person and keep imagining that person coming back? Or are you going to set the table and pray for the divine design? Which way are you going to go on this topic? Neither one's right or wrong. It's just what feels right for you. So what would you say? Which way would you go?
Me personally?
Yes. Like
so,
if you...
Yeah, I'm going to throw in this as well. And again, please stop me if I shouldn't. There was another example where there was a woman who wanted a home, and she went into the Neville Goddard way of envisioning herself in the home, and she eventually gets it, but pays a karmic debt because the man that owned the home, he passes away, but then her karmic debt was losing her husband. So I guess this is where, when you ask me which way, and I did get into this because of the SP, much like everyone else, the fear kicks in. Am I doing this and I'm praying or affirming for SP to come? Am I setting the table? Or am I setting myself up for perhaps paying a karmic debt? And that's the challenge.
Oh, that's what I also feel. So thanks. Sorry about that. I also feel the same way.
Wendy, just one sec. Let me respond to that before you jump in. I understand what you're saying, and I do think you are correct in the hesitancy of thinking about it. Okay? I would say, and some people have argued with me about this many times, and again, each to their own as to what they think about this. But if your SP is married to someone else, should you still manifest that person? Now, in my opinion, hell no. Exactly for the reason that you're saying.
I agree with you there as well.
Yeah. But if you do your self-love work, radiate love out to your SP, and that you wish the highest good for him and you bless him and his family, if he happens to get divorced at some point, you have not done anything to destroy or get what you want, and then the boomerang comes back to hit you. So it's letting things unfold. It's like nature. You see, you don't pick the fruit before it's ripe, you see. Okay, so I think it's important to, and I know a lot of people don't like hearing that, especially if their SP got married to somebody. But ask yourself, if I was the wife of that man that I love, would I want someone trying to do some stuff to break up our marriage? Would that be something I myself would want to experience? Now, I don't think you can break people up if it's tight. I don't think you can. I think the tightness of love, it's only when perhaps the wife has fear of a third party that that person could probably come in, because she might be feeling second best, or she found out that, you know, that person was trying to manifest her husband or whatever, and then it plants bad seeds. So it's a very fragile thing, this, isn't it? Because, and the SP topic on this thing of what you're saying, should I pray for the divine design and see if the person comes in, or should I just do a beeline and ask for my specific person? It depends, I think, on the factors of what's going on.
Okay.
As in, are they engaged? Are they married? Have they said, you know, I mean, if people say to you, I never want to be with you again, but they're not with anyone. I mean, my partner said to me, you're not for me, you're not for me, more than half a dozen times. And yet we're together now. We've been together for I think 12, 13 years. So I know
do you mind me asking, Agnes, and I don't know if I'm giving too much. So my SP is not married, and but we are in no contact, and she said the same. Yeah, she said the same thing. However, I guess I was going to ask you, so when your partner said that, did you go into Neville, or did you go into Florence kind of praying for the divine design, or did you see yourself kind of as Neville says, living in the end? Like, which route did you take? Which was right for you specifically?
Yeah.
How did you get him to come in as a different?
Good question. At that point, I mean, I went the Neville route in the beginning, but once he said that, I thought, okay, I'm not going to go Florence or Neville. My self-love is up S Creek right now, obviously, because I'm getting a really bad reflection of something I so don't want to experience. And I crashed and burned in my self-love, and I felt abandoned. I felt insecure. I felt not good enough. I felt not good enough for that person. So I could see, like with a magnifying glass, how bad my self-love was. So I knew I couldn't even go to Neville or Florence, because people try and go to Neville and Florence from that point, but you've got no foundation of love. You've got a foundation of neediness and feeling like you're going to die if you don't get love from that person. I don't think doing Florence or Neville at that point, now that I look back 15 years, I'm glad I did it the way I did it, because I understood that self-love was the foundation to be able to draw love to me. But I had to get good at that first. People try and do Neville or Florence before they have a foundation of love. And that's why so many people say, oh, this stuff doesn't work. Because you're not in a state, you're trying to you're trying to ice a rotten cake.
Okay. Thank you, Agnes.
I'm so glad you brought this up, because it's a big, big atomic bomb conversation, you know, especially if people are married and engaged, or they've said, I don't want you, or whatever. It's like looking at, well, if that's out there in front of me, what the heck have I got going on within me that's here? That's the powerful question. Florence stuff's great. Neville stuff's great too. But you cannot ice a rotten cake. If you feel unloved, you are unloved. And if you feel loved, you are loved, just like Esther says. So you got to fix the foundation before you build the house. Otherwise, it's just going to fall apart. So I'm really glad you brought this up, because it's neither one of them, I think, you know, living in the end when you're feeling completely needy and abandoned and brokenhearted. How the heck is that going to happen? It's not, because the fertilizer is wrong for the thing you want to create. So it's doing things, I think, in the right order so that you can make Neville or Florence work, but you have to fix the real issue, which is I don't feel loved at all and I feel really needy for it. And I hate that about myself right now. I wish it was different. I want to get rid of this. So you deal with that first.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, nice line of question. Well, Wendy, we're not going to go on because it's the end of the time. So I'm not going to start a new chapter today, because we're not going to get very far in 2 minutes. So I will leave that tonight. And good questions and interesting dialogue. And we will continue next week. Again, use the same link if you want to hop in again. And doesn't matter if you've got the book or not. That's never an issue. You know, you just show up and you go from there. Okay. Wendy?
Yeah, the question I have is, when in Neville Goddard's At Your Command book, all the desires are God's given. There is a purpose for a desire to come to you, right? When the type of question that comes from this and Florence here, is it contradicting, like desires are God's gift? Then what are your thoughts about that?
About desires being God's gift?
Yeah, about manifesting SP in a different situation, third-party situation, or certain other situations. If you have a desire, there must be some purpose, right?
Yeah, and usually that purpose is for you to mature spiritually about the topic of love and understanding where love comes from. People think that getting with an SP is where love is. It's not. And that's why so many people struggle to manifest a specific person, because they're trying to get love from them. And they say, I love that person so much. No, you don't. You're fixated with them loving you. And I'm talking about at the beginning of the SP journey. As you work on your self-love, as you work on understanding it's not their job to love me, to make me feel loved. They didn't cause this. They can't cure it. This comes from my history. It comes from my family. It comes from being bullied at school. It comes from, you know, all these scenarios with friends where you are not strong in your self-love and your confidence, because a lot of us didn't grow up learning about that. So it's looking at, okay, my desires come from God, but the learning to shift my perspective, which is my SP is one of my greatest teachers of all time. He's showing me, or she's showing me, that I am chasing love and I want them to give it, which is a child to adult love state. You want to, as you learn with your SP about why you're in so much pain, why you suffer so much, it's because you're looking for love in all the wrong places, as they say. Your SP is mirroring you feeling needy for love and they're not giving it. Your SP is showing you that you don't feel loved and you think you love them, but you're obsessed with them loving you. And this is, again, at the beginning of your SP journey, when you've had a breakup or you know, they don't want to come towards you, they've gone towards someone else. As you work on your self-love, you finally understand that radiating, I'm trying to get love, radiating neediness is never going to bring you love from a specific person. And you understand you have to shift your state inside of you and become someone who feels love inside, connected to source, God, infinite intelligence, whatever word you prefer, and get to the point where you radiate it out. And that's when SPs come back. But when they come back, that's not the hard part. It's maintaining that, because you get so easily fixated with them loving you again that you drop the ball on your self-love work. And I see people go through 2 or 3 breakups because as soon as that person's putting the focus back on you, you go, oh, I feel good now, I'm not doing all that stuff anymore. And you shoot yourself in the foot. But this is a lesson of, I'm now going back to looking for external love. And every time I do that, I will end up hurting myself, because people cannot meet your needs fully. And it's not their job. So we must learn, in the maturing of the topic of love, love is from within. And I need to practice through meditation, affirmations, doing things that make me feel good, getting into the state of I am love, not I need to get love. And that is going from a child to an adult to adult, more mature state around the topic of love and around the topic of the specific person.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that.
Good question.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. I'm going to hop off the computer. I've been on here for 3 sessions today and I need a little break. So thank you for joining me. And we will continue with the next wonderful chapter in this book next week. And I will upload this within 48 hours. And I will put the links to what I said I would put up. If you find the description in the video, you will all get an email with the replay link. And, oh no, hang on, sorry, no. This one is the free one, so it goes up on YouTube. Just keep an eye out for it. And the links will all be in the description, okay? So this is for public YouTube. Everybody gets to see this. So lots of love, everyone. And I will see you next week. You want to unmute yourself and say goodbye?
Thank you, Agnes.
My pleasure, Akbar. My pleasure.
Yes.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you.
See you next week.
See you next week. Thank you.